Patrick McLaughlin, Thomas Morris,
Here.
Roy Townsend.
Here.
Liz Wiseman.
Okay, so we have a quorum. We said a couple people might be late, and a couple people already committed to that, or else you won't be here. Okay. I guess we'll move on. Item C, adoption of the agenda. Someone like to make a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
Second. Moved by Steve, second by Thomas. Anything that needs to be added or amended or changed? No, hearing none. All those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Please carry. Now item D, time for public comment. Members of the public, no one is in the room here today, but you are allowed up to 5 minutes. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to have their hand raised and would like to speak? Yeah.
Kathleen Brandt has her hand raised.
Good afternoon, Kathleen Brandt, Scio resident. I want to ask a question now because I know some members on this committee do not like to interact with the public when you talk about things. So, Anna, I have a question about the budget, proposed budget. I've looked through that and I see 2 line items that I have a question on. One line item is for Scio Uplands, $35,000, and then another line item for Scio Uplands for $200,000. Now, I know that they just finished the work for the sidewalks there, and almost 99% of that was funded through ARPA funds. So my question is, why do you have $235,000 budgeted for those subdivisions in the upcoming year?
Go ahead, answer that.
So the way that the budget is being done this year, with the support of Plant Moran, is our numbers are just carried over from last year to this year. So those numbers were automatically carried over to this fiscal year. And then if you are to hover your cursor over the little triangle in the corner of those boxes, I put kind of the comments and edits. And so we actually reduced that number down to 0 for this year because the project wrapped up. So
Okay, just so you know, when you attach that to the packet, we can't see any comments. I don't know if you're using a spreadsheet, but that does not convey. But thanks for the answer. I appreciate that.
thank you. Yeah, I imagine those wouldn't come through on the agenda attachment, but it is something that I'll share screen today and go over each budget item and we can talk about it today. Brad Pattinson? All right, yeah, no more hands.
Anyone else? All right, let's move on to item E then, approval of the minutes. We have,
So just quick thing, we'll have to do the minutes for next week, or last month at our next meeting. But I do have the edits from last month, which I'm not sure if I needed to include them again, but they're here.
okay, so we did act on the November meeting minutes at our December meeting. You're just saying these were the edits that were brought up at that meeting.
Yeah, I don't know if that's something that needs to be revisited.
So.
Okay.
Okay. So we don't really, we won't act on December minutes, and November is, I guess, for information purposes only. I guess the way we'll accept those. Okay. So item F, consent agenda, we really don't have any consent agenda items. So we'll move on to item G, reports. Parks,
Yes. I think the most exciting report is that the Van Curler North parking lot is underway.
Yay.
Yay. Neighbors were informed on the 24th that construction had begun, and then construction began last week, midweek. And so if you're interested, you can drive by there.
On Joy,
On Joy.
how many, is it for 6 cars?
Six
Is that what we're doing?
cars.
Okay.
Yeah, similar to our other parking lots, gravel, 6-car parking lot.
And do you know the trees that we talked about are going to be living trees?
Eric Fryer sent me a photo last week, that was mainly, he had like an excavator out and was leveling. I've been out sick, so I haven't actually driven up there this week, but I hope to tomorrow morning, and I'll see.
And is there, what is the plan for whatever trees are gonna be cut down?
Rita and I went out, and did kind of a construction meeting. When was that at this point? A couple weeks ago? Just to make sure the trees are coming down, or the ones that we okayed to come down and everything. There's 2 very tall, straight walnuts that have to come down.
Yeah,
3.
but 2 that we totally wanna try to have the straight piece of the wood so that we can use it for nature play space
Yeah.
ideas. And there's actually 3 of them.
Yeah.
And I was hoping to go back and just like put something on it, like safety features for us. But we did talk to him about it. So I'm hoping that we can just trust that they'll just either leave them there. Or they'll keep them.
Was this also, it seems like when we were talking about the cost of the Van Curler lot and others, we were going to, there was either going to be a, money back because we could sell the wood, or we were gonna reuse it for the purposes of either a play space or, I don't know, mulching for a trail or something like that. So they do understand that that's what we want, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we had that conversation at the pre-plan meeting, but I think it would be prudent to have something in writing.
Yeah.
Maybe if the play space committee wanted to come up with like a rough number, or and we could ask Eric as part of this work to cut the stumps for us, how many we would want,
Yeah.
something like that. I think if we got that in the next week.
It probably wouldn't be that much.
Would that, not to overcomplicate it, but would that be something we should run by our Eagle Scout to determine the diameter of stump that he may want to use or not want to use? And if it doesn't match a certain thing, he might want to use it for something else. Would that make sense?
If that's the case, then maybe we leave the wood there and we re-stump it later, because I don't know how long that will take. If they can move it out of the way, so it's not in the way and keeping the project from moving forward.
Yeah,
Then,
and I
okay,
think, there you go, and that's the
that would
thing,
be
to
reasonable.
not tie him up and have him having to run through a lot of extra hoops, maybe we just, I don't know, should we just take a chance and say, cut a bunch of them at 28 inches or whatever a normal stool height would be, and just go ahead and do it?
Even if we had 2 of them stumped and one of them not stumped,
Yeah,
because we might be able to use that piece
sure,
in a different, I've got an idea already, but
great.
I'm not the Eagle Scout, but I mean, just for a different,
And I don't know how long these pieces are anyway, right? So,
depends on how they're pretty, they didn't measure, but they're,
significant diameter, like 12, 14, 18, 20, what?
Yeah,
Okay,
12 to 16.
okay.
yeah, I don't, Rita, you and Ann, want to get to figure out what would be a typical height?
reasonable. And it might be nice to have, I think it would be fun to have different height.
Okay.
Oh,
that's fine.
good
Because
idea.
especially if you do the
Yes,
circle thing where
sure.
the kids run, it's kind of fun
Yeah.
that they're not all the same.
Sure,
And even to accommodate different body sizes, if they're
Absolutely.
like
Yeah,
sitting
that's
by
a
the
great idea.
stage. So
Yeah.
I don't think that the height should be
all the same,
No, that's a
right?
great idea, yeah.
Some are 12, some are whatever.
And
Maybe
I keep
someone
forgetting.
out there has some,
I
has
keep
done this
forgetting
before,
the
so.
gentleman's name from the U of M that we were also working with. What's his name?
Samuels.
Yeah.
Oh.
He might have an opinion on that too, but
Yeah, the more we chat about it, the more I think it might be good to just re-engage with Eric again this week and make sure they get left there. But then maybe we wait until we chat with folks and we also bring this to the Board of Trustees to make sure we're not getting ahead of ourselves with the natural play space before touching this stuff.
okay, yeah.
If they can really just put them to the side.
Put the logs to the side there.
Yeah.
We can-
They're not in their way and,
Right, there's a lot of room out there, so you,
Okay,
but don't take them away. Those
Right.
three,
Yeah.
those are the three I would like for.
okay, great. Yeah.
Here's beautiful.
Oh, yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet.
Unfortunately, I think they won't. So I'm sure anybody that does woodworking would be like 2 tables.
Yeah. Yeah.
One other update from Parks I have is, myself, Jan Culbertson, and Jacqueline Corteau have been meeting, to talk about tree fund, and we are almost ready to share a few drafts with everyone. So those will be coming any week now. We've been doing a lot of research and we're writing up, not only the policy for tree fund, but also how we'll enact that policy. And then we'll hope to get that draft out to Parks and LTC and the VOT for feedback. And then hopefully have kind of like a working group meeting with folks who want to attend to keep pushing that forward. Thanks.
anything else? Report, anything report from planning? That was Chris, right?
Right.
Was John done?
Yeah, I am as well. Last night, I'm sorry, 2 nights ago, Monday night, there was a football game on and there was not a planning commission meeting.
That's a pretty good reason.
So
Yeah, that was a good.
They said they didn't have anything.
We'll
so-
give you a break, okay.
Yeah.
Nothing to report.
Next year, depending on who's playing, you better have that meeting.
LPZ, Liz not here, roads, I was not at the meeting, so I don't,
Really? Was it Monday night?
that was last week, it was Tuesday, Wednesday or something, I was up north. Board of trustees,
I
Anything in there?
emailed the report,
that what Christie sent us?
No. Oh, yeah, it was.
I have written, I brought printed copies and I sent it to Christie.
Yeah.
And say, please get it, fan it out
She
and put
did.
it on the,
She did.
but I have it, if you haven't had the opportunity. I have printed copies. For anyone who wants a copy. Yeah, I'll pass them down and I'll get the rest. The neighbors, there's one for you.
Oh.
In the interest of saving time, I'm willing to just rely on my written report. And you guys can call or ask me questions now or later, if you have any.
I did have a couple, at least one. On the Uplands job,
Yes.
the 331 was taken from ARPA funds. I was just wondering why the additional 16 wasn't also taken from ARPA funds versus.
Because the ARPA monies have been distributed to various projects, kind of the
So
last.
it's zeroed out now?
Yeah, that's why.
Okay.
It's primarily to roads it went, but some went to fire, some went to IT, it went to different projects, so
Okay,
that's.
so that
why.
pot's,
How
We have
does
the
that,
same thing,
how does that order get established though? I'm curious.
through votes,
Okay.
in majority votes at the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
Based on requests for it and, whether there's support for it.
All right.
so that'll just come out of the 23 budget, it'll come out of this year's budget.
There were negative audit findings that said, hey, y'all gotta allocate that ARPA fund, you just can't have it. So we were under the gun a little bit to allocate the ARPA fund. Ann Arbor's is kind of the same way, so we wanted to have it allocated for projects. IT upgrade was one of them, and it was like small jobs here or there, so that's how it happened.
I think you guys have until next December 2024. To allocate and spend it by
I agree.
2026. but that's-
Yep.
No, I have a question about the appointments. It looks like they want to end them on June 30th. of a given year and
They wanna kinda, that'll have to be kind of phased in because we have appointments that don't end in June, on a June 30th.
right.
We have
So-
appointments that end, what, November, December, January.
December, yeah.
So can we do that, start it next year? So that.
Well, one, we haven't passed the policy yet, so there is no policy.
So it's like a-
So there would be a policy that would have to be forward-looking, right, perspective. So if there's a new board or committee, it could be the June 30th. And if there are appointments, and it's gonna have to phase in, right? You're just gonna have to say, okay, your reappointment will go to June 30th. And that's kind of at the interest in that is to make it easier for staff who has to onboard so many people with the payroll and with the orientation packets and all that kind of stuff. And it'll be easier for them if there's one date. And also to get the word out that we have these boards and commission during which there are openings. So people, I think they want to go like 120 days before that deadline, let existing people know that it's going to expire. Please send your letter of interest in reserving again. Or not, and then 90 days, we put it out to the public, and then in 30 days before it, so they're trying to restore some kind of order to it. While also staggering the term so that, you lose about a third of your folks during any one appointment season, rather than have 6 new people saying, okay, what do we do?
Thank you.
What was the reason for the middle of the year versus?
It was, they wanted it to coincide with a payroll, with I think some of these boards and commissions are paid, like, I think monthly or quarterly, it might be quarterly, so it was payroll based, and having it in the middle of the year, like, kind of before an election, after an election, kind of hopefully take some of the politics out of it. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, I guess I'm.
yeah, I mean, you gotta pick a date.
Right.
You gotta.
So that means we're all getting paid. That's good. That's right.
We're getting, yeah.
I'm not saying we're getting paid, folks. I'm just saying some of them
Understood.
do get paid.
I know.
The better ones, boy.
Oh,
The ones you're not-
the higher up,
Yeah.
we're still down here.
Yeah,
Well,
More important.
no, yeah.
We're still a less committee.
yeah, the interesting part of that for us is that June is pretty hot in time. If you're gonna get something done in the parks, there's gonna be stuff happening.
It's summer.
Summer is happening. So, but
Yeah, but it'll only be 1/3 of the folks.
Mhm. Anyone else, anything?
Tell me if you have questions. We don't know.
Place committee.
not really. I think we met when we met in December, we met Brendan and Brendan last year. But we talked about a lot of things, but I think there are some things that little details that he has to work through before he shows back up.
Was the plan for him to come back in again, or he was gonna email the subcommittee, if that's what we're called, subcommittee?
I
Place-based
think
committee?
it might be good, maybe I'll reach out to him
Okay.
before we meet again.
Sure,
And find out, exactly where he is.
okay,
Because I think his stuff, he had to like start drawing it up and writing it up and then get it okay through the powers that be at his end.
right.
And then back to- I believe that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's all from reports. Let's move on to item H, appointment review. So the P3 charge.
I just threw this in our agenda because every time we've talked about appointments, there's been, I perceived kind of like a mumbling a little bit. So I wanted to include our charge and the current appointments and term ending dates, just so we're all on the same page. Yeah, no more than that.
Okay.
Now, did we want to consider moving officers around now? Or
I know, that's all of a sudden when I saw that, because I don't think we actually,
touch base?
we didn't act on it last meeting. So really sort of running this meeting, but I'm not sure I'm still
You got my vote, Roy.
The chairperson or not,
You
but
got my vote, Roy. I'm
I
sure.
think we left that open, so that was unfinished business.
Chairman Pro Tem.
Yeah.
So we probably, I guess we should probably add it to the, and it's too late.
I think last time we,
Or we could just add it to the next time. We'll do this meeting as is and
Could I fashion a motion that Roy and Rita are chairman again for the next round? I'd be happy to fashion a motion to something to that effect. If that's okay.
I'm not opposed to that.
I'm not opposed either. I think it's, whatever. I'm sure by the next, whatever. Not next month, but
25,
yeah,
2026, 2028,
I
yeah.
would have passed them off.
Well, all right,
Someone will want to have,
always.
someone will
Sure.
wear that.
that's right.
And will we want co-chairs then? Oh, we might.
I don't see a downside to co-chairs as long as, you guys keep getting along well. You appear to be anyway.
Yep.
I mean, I'll make that motion right
Yeah,
now.
we did
The
get
question
support.
is, and the question is Heather happy being, taking notes? Are you
Sure.
okay being the secretary for a minute?
Yeah, as long as everybody's.
Doing a great job,
So you're
Heather.
willing to
Thank you.
amend your,
Yes,
Thank you.
and that Heather remains the, I guess, is it the secretary? Is that technically the term? Yes, then please, I'd like to amend my motion. And I continue my second.
okay. Any further discussion?
I think it's a good idea.
I agree. The co-chairs, this is a pretty big committee.
Yeah.
And given that we have to have people from PC, RAC, LPC, BOT, and then 5 at large, the odds are that any one of you two not being able to be there, and what do we do now? So- Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All those favors say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's carried. So we'll add that in.
All right.
Item and
Done.
done. We'll deal with it next time.
All right.
So I guess if the other discussions on item H, appointments, will go on to item I. The budget, 2024 budget, and basically, we have an annual each review. We're gonna look back on this year. Our budget, I mean, our budget runs through March or April. All through March, and it's April 1 it starts new. Yeah, yeah. So, and through March, so we're still in this, the 23-24 budget, we're looking at 24-25. Some of the stuff, looking at some of the numbers, I think this, some of the stuff like carried over, which adds a little bit of confusion. And Kathleen Brandt said, so like, why is that number in there? And so with that, I'll turn it over to Anna. She can walk us through that and hopefully answer any questions. And, it was in the packet.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And you have to have really good eyes.
Yeah,
Um,
how much Zoom have you got there, Anna?
Yeah, I can do us in.
okay, good.
I'll start by saying it's a very long budget. It's taken a long time for me to understand it by studying it, so I'm gonna try and go slowly for folks on Zoom and in the room. I'm also getting over a cold, and so please interrupt if I'm not being clear. Ask questions. And yeah, we'll just move slowly.
Okay.
Okay, I'll orient us first. So at the top of this year, we have 2023, 2024 amended budget in this column. We then have our year-to-date balance in this column, which means how much we have spent this fiscal year.
Well, Anna, I'm sorry, and not that you're not being clear, but I'm having trouble following your cursor. So when you say this column, I'm not actually seeing it. Could you just say column E, B, D, whatever?
I'll say the letters. I'll also
Yeah.
click, so.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's great. Thanks.
So column D is amended budget, how much we budgeted. E is how much we spent.
Year to date.
F is using those numbers, the percent
Okay.
that we've spent of what we kind of projected to spend. Yeah, if you want to pull a chair up closer to the screen.
On a fiscal year basis.
On this, yeah, this fiscal year, this year that we are still in. Then I'll bring us over to column H, which is the 24-25 proposed budget. So what we're talking about right now is proposed budget, it hasn't been approved, and it's still in the works. I just wanted to have a transparent conversation with all of you. So far, what we'll be looking at has been put together by myself, Plant Moran, with the support of Roy and Rita. And now we're bringing it to you to get feedback, thoughts, and it will just continue to come together. I have a meeting coming up next week with Plant Moran and the township manager. And yeah, it's in the works. So any questions just right off the bat?
Well, sure, the 930,000 for 24-25 real property taxes, so this is a millage that we are being, okay,
Yes,
or not a SUD, a PA, whatever, okay, good,
yes, that
Okay.
number is the parks millage.
okay.
It is the millage allocated to parks. It's not the township's total revenue from
Right.
real property.
True.
Yeah, right. Okay,
So we use our time wisely today. I think I'll scroll down into expenditures and just kind of look at the big projects that we have coming up. Any objections to that? Great. All right. Scrolling. The yellow part here, oh no, let me plug in this in here. The highlighted yellow part is the area that Plant Moran will be calculating, which is great because last year, that was something I was calculating. I'm very grateful for their support this year. Okay, the row that I just turned gray.
Yeah.
That is kind of the beginning of the parks expenditures. So we have some expenditures for tools and supplies. This includes maintaining all of the boardwalks and taking care of the truck and other tools in the tool room in the Parks Department.
Is that the 10,250 amount, 10,250?
It is 20,500.
Say line 67.
Yeah, line 60.
I printed mine out because I can't read it. Yes.
Oh, no.
bring a chair over,
Yeah,
we're having a meeting.
we should have made popcorn.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Yeah, I see it, I see it.
Great. I will just kind of scroll down. If I skip over a line item you're curious about, you can call out.
Okay.
Here we have in row 72, which is now highlighted gray. You can see 51,250 was drawn over from the previous year. But we will be adding an additional 20,000 to that for play spaces, which we discussed at our last meeting for the nature play space. In this column that's now gray, I've put comments to kind of explain the number. So we have about 50,000 engineering for Sloan Preserve Bridge over Mill Creek, which is an exciting project that would make Sloan a lot safer for people fishing on the island. And that's a number that a very rough number that I got from OHM to talk about the beginning of the engineering for that bridge. And then, yeah, 20,000 for the play space.
Sorry, so
Yeah.
OHM said, yeah, 20 grand for the play space, okay.
Sorry, let me clarify. OHM said 50,000 for the bridge, roughly.
Okay,
And then 20,000 is the number that we all threw around at our last PPP meeting, just to earmark for a nature play space.
okay. But it says OHM consulting on Boy Scout nature play area, so did OHM have an opinion on the natural play space? Is that to be read that way?
No,
Oh,
yeah,
Okay.
thanks for asking.
okay.
No. I guess I should delete OHM. It would just be consulting on Boy Scout natural play area.
And for the engineering for the Stone Park Bridge, there's a quote from that, for that already.
That was not a quote, but it did come out of a conversation with OHM. Just looking at a creek this size, what number should I earmark in the budget?
So is the $51,000
just for them to draw the plans and the engineering?
Yeah, it was $50,000 for engineering. And I had that in the budget last year, so it rolled over and then, oh, I forgot to mention, yeah, not only did numbers roll over, but they increased a bit for inflation, so that 1,250 is just the increase.
Do you recall the size of the bridge? Can you? I don't know how to.
We can buy boats.
Oh,
Um,
there is a bridge at the Botanical Gardens that they put over, Fleming Creek.
And that type of.
And it looks just about like what we're gonna
So
need.
similar to that. Okay,
Similar
that gives
to
me an
that.
idea. Okay, thank you.
So is that a cost to simply engineer and plan the bridge, or is that a start to finish?
I think it's engineer.
I think, yeah, possibly plus permits.
Yeah.
I think what I've come to understand, is that because a log can float on that water, there's a lot of regulation in Michigan for waterways that could float a log because of the logging history of Michigan. That's kind of where that
That's the
regulation comes
definition
from.
of navigable that's being used.
So it is a navigable water source, and so a lot of permits would be involved and, yeah, it would be, the bridge would have to really span more than just the waterway to ensure we were following all of those regulations.
And the boats could get underneath it? Canoes and things?
What they usually use,
I don't,
what they call is high water mark, wherever the high water mark is, that's what they want. Your bridge has to span that distance, like right now, let's say the creek's 2 feet wide, 4 feet wide, 6 feet wide, whatever. During high water, how wide is it? 20 feet, 30 feet, that's what Eagle's gonna want you to do, span high
And it
water.
would continue to be navigable.
By hand, yeah.
Maybe a canoe, but not a freighter.
Not a steep.
It would also prevent damage from logs. that might be-
Exactly.
Oh, okay, right.
That's it, that's always have when they engineer it. So,
yeah, and I think, yeah, it's an important conversation to have because we do know that residents cross that creek. We have a park there and people are crossing to fish all the time.
By walking across the water, by waiting?
Somebody put rocks
you
there.
got stepping stones, the stepping stones.
It's doable with hiking poles and stuff.
Yeah, no, we can just have a waiter fund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm kidding.
I'll go down to our next large number, which is equipment repair and maintenance, row 88. This will be split between utilities and parks to cover repairs on the Kubota and other equipment repairs. Okay, our next project here, row 94. We have some funds set aside for land easement acquisition. Liberty Pond and West Scio are just almost connectable through easements, and property that's part of the park. However, they're not quite connecting. So there is a future in which we connect both of those properties and it possibly would require easement acquisition. And so that number's been in the budget from last year. And yeah, that might just be earmarked for future, but for connectivity for animals, humans, it would be great to have those properties connected. So line 96 again is for the Liberty Pond to West Scio connector project. Line 97 is land improvements. And that is 61,500, and that's for benches, signs, kiosks. You'll note that that number is not project or property specific. It's kind of like an overall for land improvement number there. If we're gonna buy a bench for a bunch of properties, it'll come out of that.
So that's
Line item.
not the cost of labor for installing a bench or putting up a sign, that's just the materials only, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
So labor would either come from Parks Department salaries or be a contracted service.
So then 61,500 in materials only. Do we have an idea of 27 benches, 15 signs, that kind of thing? Or how did we sort of come to that number?
I calculated that number last year, I believe, by finding, it was the bench that Rita and I bought for
Yeah.
Marshall Park, and then multiplying that out a couple benches at each property.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, line 99 is land improvements for Marshall Park at 41,000. And that is for a crushed limestone ADA path. When I say ADA, I mean, it would be wheelchair accessible. And this is a project that we kind of started planning out last year, didn't happen this year. I think it would be a great project to prioritize this year as our first wheelchair accessible park. I think that's very exciting.
Yeah.
This property is a great candidate because it's high up, it's not in a wetland, which is kind of rare for our parks and preserves. There's a big parking lot, and we have those half-finished bathrooms on the outside of this building. So if in the future there were accessible restrooms here and a big parking lot and a wheelchair accessible path, I think that would be just a great step into making our properties
So
really accessible.
Is it Marshall Park or it should be
You said-
Township Park, right? It looks
Oh.
like it's.
I've heard Marshall and I've heard, you're thinking, I'm hearing
Thank you.
township described
Yeah.
as you describe it.
Okay, thank you. Line 102, let me back up. Line 99, what I was just talking about is Marshall Park.
Okay.
And we had discussed if we were going to do that project at Township Hall Park, line 102, we might also throw in limestone at Marshall Park to make that accessible as well. So they're kind of a project in the same. Marshall Park, however, is very wet. And so it would add further permitting to create a crushed limestone path on a wetland. If I can skip over to line 102, that's what I was talking about, Township Hall Park. We have budgeted 266,500 for that ADA accessible loop around Township Hall Park. And the figure includes grading, gravel, handicap accessible parking spaces. Yeah, I've come to understand that because Marshall Park is a smaller project, it would make sense if we were going to do the limestone at Township Hall, Marshall Park is next door, we would kind of bundle those two projects together.
So you're talking about the Marshall Park that's on Zebra.
Yes,
So the play space on line 102 is different than the play space on line 60 something, whatever, where we were back when we were questioning, does OHM have anything to do with the play space for 20 grand? Those are two different play spaces.
good question. This has 10,000 for,
Yeah, I can't remember what line it was. and
Yeah.
whether it was
That's,
60 something.
Well, the other
I'll scroll up.
entry was for engineering work.
For the bridge, but there was also a mention of.
Right, I think it was for engineering for the,
Yeah, it was 20,000, but it was up another 20, 30 lines, like 70 or 60. And it was
Yeah,
in
it's
your,
like
and it was in your comments.
72, I think, right?
So we did have engineering support budgeted for it in case the Board of Trustees, when we have that natural play space conversation, wants us to work with an outside service to ensure,
Mhm.
I don't know, safety in the natural play space. We have that budgeted. Here I have budgeted 10,000 because if we're doing land improvements in Township Hall Park, grading, laying limestone, if it makes sense for the Boy Scout project, we'll have that additional 10,000 maybe to grade that area.
So then going back up 30 lines roughly, whatever that was, there was 20,000 in there for the play space if we needed to use OHM. So there was a reference to OHM that was appropriate there. That was confusing to me.
That does make sense. Yeah, that was if we do need to consult with an
Okay.
outside.
I got it now. Thank you.
Yeah.
And it may not be OHM, it just could be another.
Right, but for the sake of making it, okay, got it. Okay, thanks.
Okay. I will just skip backwards now to 100, line 100, which is land improvements at DD Marshall. So here's an example of the 61,500 carried over from last year. But then I did make a note for this budgeting season that I'm having trouble clicking on. But my note says, bring this down to 0 because the Parks Committee decided that too many trees had to come down for line of sight and we paused the parking lot construction. Yeah. Oh, maybe if I click this. Yeah, now I'm able to see my notes. Oh, but it did take me to a new spot in the document.
Gotta go back up, unless you want to skip 70 lines. There you go.
Thank you. There you go. Okay. Which line item were we just on?
102, well, we were 100 and then 102.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, 103, Van Curler. So 120,000 was budgeted last year. This year, that's increased to 123,000. And we've added an additional 60,000 to pick up that conversation with Metro Parks to connect Van Curler in the south to the Metro Park across Shrine River Drive.
We don't have specific plans for that yet, but this is just an estimate for what we might spend to start on that project.
About a year ago, there was conversation and plans and OHM was involved. There was conversation between Parks and the Metro Park. And that kind of got put on hold as Roy, is your understanding, like positions shifted in Metro Parks and the conversation was put on hold?
Yeah, OHM has done some work on it, some early, we said like 30% plans type thing. So we sent that over to HCMA, Metro Parks. They're looking at, they had some comments and then we got busy with a lot of other things and they never really got back with us, so that we needed to get back with HCMA. And if we want to push this project forward, that's where we put money in last year for to do the work, the connection, never really got done. So our goal would be to get OHM, Metro Parks and us on the same page and then hopefully maybe try to do the connection.
Do we have an idea of what the connection would look like? I mean, basically go from the truck parking lot in the Metro Park and cut down some brush and maybe.
Yeah, so basically it goes from Dexter here on Metro Park, like where the border trail goes through there, where the bridge. I don't know, the bridge near the
That's
one
not
parking
where
lot.
we walked across.
Yeah, yeah,
Or it is.
yeah, so it'd go from there, from the border trail up around on Highland is like a little gravel parking lot where they park trailers, people park trailers.
Yeah, that's what I was calling the truck.
Okay, yep. Got up around there through brush, like you said, it parallels Huron River Drive and crosses Huron River Drive at an optimal location where you got sight distance both east and west or north and south on Huron River Drive,
Okay.
which is pretty much where the old driveway, the current driveway, old driveway, whatever you want to call it, exists. So you need to do some improvements, improve line of sight, and then figure out what type of crossing, you know, do you just put a crosswalk in, do you do rapid flashing beacons, or what do you need to do? All those type of things, then make the connection all the way up. Using the driveway, the driveway, is in pretty decent shape as far as a walking trail. Obviously, there's a few trees, but you add some material to it and it could be easily upgraded to a walking trail. And then you can sort of walk on it today. So that's sort of the idea. It's all conceptual, as far as the alignment. That's our goal is re-engage HCMA, OHM to try to get that connection, especially now that, last summer they did the 1.7 mile loop, which is great. And then we'll have a parking lot at the north end.
Mhm.
So actually you can, to connect this all together after, the township sat on the parcel for 7-8 years to get the whole thing connected from the south and from the north would be ideal. So does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yes.
And then we have funds budgeted for the parking lot that we're currently working on, along with the picnic area up there on the north side.
Do you have an idea of how much has been spent so far in the parking lot for Van Curler?
Good question. We can look at this.
Probably zero since he's just starting.
As of 11/30/2023, 3,350.
So it's part of permits and stuff like that.
And do you have an idea of what it's gonna be when they finish their work, which is like about now? They're finishing it up, is that right?
They are just beginning last week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so hard to say how much they'll be able to get done, like, we'll see with the weather. But it will probably have to be picked up again in the spring, which might be in this next fiscal
What's
year.
the magnitude of that project in terms of dollars?
We budgeted 120,000.
Yes, I think that was a bid, took a bid for that.
They hit a speed bump when the stig marked. There was a gas line going right where the entrance needed to be, and they had to grade it down to get it, level it out a bit, and
Line 104, we have vernal pool cleanup at West Scio Preserve. So one of the vernal pools has a lot of rusty metal, trash, glass, plastics around it. The one that there's a path that takes you back around that vernal pool. And so this has been a line item for the past couple of years. It would be great to clean up out there. And it is, there's rusty bed springs, that's kind of a hazardous cleanup, so we have that budgeted, in case we were able to tackle that this year.
So in a cleanup, since we're not buying signs and benches and stuff, is the 20,000 labor?
Labor, perhaps a dumpster.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, okay, gotcha. When whatever portion of that is labor, how much of that is coming from the labor portion? That's another 100 slots up your list there. Or is it to be added?
So depending on who's doing the work, it might either come out of, if like park salary, like if it was myself or a steward hired in the summer, it would come out of their salary, which has its own line item.
Yep.
If it was a contract, it would potentially come out of a line item that says either engineering or like contract.
So it's to be determined where that money comes from. And if, for example, the part-time help in the summer, which I think all agree, we want to expand as much of that as we can. Is it better to put more money in that account versus asking, I don't know, the maintenance of Scio Township people to do that? Where are we best pulling that money from, do you think? Or adding it to the column to whatever?
It's a good question. I think it's probably task specific. I don't really know, maybe we would talk to our attorneys. I don't really know with like hazardous material cleanup, who can even do it or who's going to be doing it,
Good point.
which is kind of why I pulled it out.
Okay.
I personally don't want to go in there because there's a lot of like glass shards in the dirt and yeah, so I don't really know. That's kind of why I just have it as its own project here.
Okay.
It hasn't been something I wanted to tackle with volunteers or anything.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, we're now entering the part of the budget that is pathways. So this is potentially the last year where this budget is organized in this way. But yeah, it's currently broken out into parks and pathways separately. So I will go ahead to expenditures here. All right, this is the Scio Ridge Uplands engineering fees. We are bringing this down to 0 because the project is done. And by this, I meant row 132. Row 135 is Zeeb Road Phase 5 engineering fees. We have budgeted $205,000 for remaining engineering fees for Zeeb Road Phase 5.
And that's from where to where again, please?
Zeeb Road Phase 5 would include the bridge up to
Hoover?
Yeah.
the railroad tracks.
Hoover, Railroad was good. I remember Hoover.
Yeah, so where it stops today, which is, south of Peters, up across the river, the bridge, through Hoover or Stanley or whatever it is
Yeah.
today, then up to, connecting to the Board Trail on the north side of the railroad track.
North.
Up toward
The very north piece of the Zebro Trail.
Yes. Some point I want to ask about the south end of the zebra.
No, don't.
We can talk about Phase 6 right now.
Okay.
Okay.
If, so when is phase 5 likely to be planned and constructed?
So phase 5, we have 205,000 for engineering this coming fiscal year.
Okay,
And then over here in this column, which I'll make gray, is 25-26. When we will budget again for the beginning of construction.
So
So
this year we
engineering this
plan-
coming,
this year we plan,
yes,
next year we build.
next year we begin to build.
Okay, okay. And then.
Phase 5.
I know, the northern
Right.
tier, so to speak, yep. And then the southern,
The southern,
or 6, right?
Phase 6,
Yeah.
southern.
So where is that from, what to what?
so phase 6, we budgeted 100,000 last fiscal year.
For engineering?
Yeah.
Yes, we came to learn that a lot of the lofty dreams we had for phase 6 are unrealistic. And so I have a note here that will likely be bringing this back down to 0 this fiscal year.
So where is phase 6?
Phase 6 is over the highway.
Jackson
Okay,
Road.
right, no, I get that, there's
Jackson.
already a sidewalk there now, might not be what we want, but there's already way over. And then what
Sort
is?
of. That's the question. Yeah,
And
And
then-
that wouldn't let us make it safer.
yeah,
No, right,
right.
So there's also a conversation currently with the DDA to see if the funds that they collect that can be aimed towards parks, preserves, and pathways projects could perhaps be done on phase 6 this coming fiscal year, spent on phase 6. Just enacting those safety ideas like the striping, simple safety.
and is there a phase that would, how far south does phase 6 go, or is phase 6 really just the freeway crossing?
Well, does it end at Jackson Road?
Well, it goes from Jackson Road essentially over the freeway,
Yeah.
probably all the way up to in front of South Township.
Yeah.
Because
connects
the
with
path,
the-
okay.
Yeah,
And then, let's say that there's a lot of people that live along Park Road and Zeb Road down there. Are we doing anything for the eastern portion of Park Road with respect to pathway once the Trailwinds developer puts in the eastern part of the pathway? That is the Stabler Road, Park Road pathway that stops and dumps people out on a dirt road somewhere in the middle there.
No,
what about the public benefit from the developer?
Well, the developer is doing a big public benefit with respect to paving the road, Stabler, and paving half of Park Road or part of Park Road. And there was a recent hiccup because they were going to kind of cut it off into people's backyards. So there's been discussions about how to deal with the culvert over the creek there and how to deal with the backyards and whether you redesign it or whether you berm it or whether you put trees or I don't have all the, I don't have the latest on that, but that's what stymied it for what would have been a 2024 calendar year project. And then the developer has to put a pathway that goes down Stabler and then it goes, it turns left if you go down Stabler at Park Road and it
Right.
proceeds eastward
Right.
on there and it goes all the way to
Jeep?
no, therein lies the issue. It kind of stops where Trailwind stops.
Okay,
And whether that's at Arbor Point or if the French.
but if I'm following your initial point here, you're trying to bring the part that crosses 94, the zebra path that crosses 94 to go beyond Jackson Road to catch up with that piece that we're talking, about, right?
People from the dense
Mhm.
part of, I'm not trying to, I think there's an interest in getting people in the dense trailwinds.
Yeah.
In Kirkways and Arbor Point and French Country Estates.
Right.
And other people and to Panera, to Meyer,
Sure.
to the Zeb Road pathway. Cause I think they're gonna be walking that. And I still think they're still gonna walk it. They're just gonna go out into the road. So there's two aspects of it. There's the how do we get a road there? How do we pay for a road there? And how do we get a pathway there, even without a road there? And one might say, Riser, you're an idiot if you put a pathway without putting a road. And I say, well, I don't know, Roy, people are gonna walk, and I'd rather them walk on a pathway than a
Sure.
road, and then the topography might not be right, and it's a, you know, it's a ditch, and you gotta, so I'm just saying, is that something in this body's long-term plans to try to get a pathway on the north side of Park Road as it connects from the Trailwinds Developers Path to Zeeb Road, where Slim Chickens is gonna be, in other places where they're gonna walk to and
That-
bike to and eat.
That does sound like it makes sense, definitely.
This conversation makes me think about the pros plan and how we say it's a living document, but we don't have an annual or biannual meeting where we all go over the living document and help it live. So, yeah, maybe that's what we need to do is look at that now.
And given that we seem to engineer in 1 and 2 year and build in years 3 and 4, it's at one point, do I put that, or Roy, any insight on that? Do you know anything about that from? the
Never heard of Park Road.
Okay, well, you probably heard about it from your road commission days, but
Ultimately,
like,
all of the projects we have in this budget here are just right out of the pros plan. And so I think my understanding is in order for Parks Committee to really consider a project, it should be in the pros plan because that's what we point to.
Okay.
To when we talk to the Board of Trustees.
I think Park might be in the pros plan. But, yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion on Park Road over
right.
decades.
Right.
The
paving is
The paving seems like
the paving-
that's not
I'm
gonna
not
happen.
trying to, I'm not
So,
trying
yeah,
to open that.
and basically, the other thing is, just outside of Trailwoods, we have how many acres of preserves west of there?
The corner.
Yeah, it's Stabler and
Yep.
Park Road, and it keeps going all the way to Parker, all the way down to Liberty Pond. So I mean, we, as a township, we own quite a few acres of preserves that way. So something, you know, you wanna go out that way, then obviously, like you said, Trailwoods, you have Scio Farms, all those people, if they wanna get towards Zeeb Road. So making those connections seems like some early preliminary study would make some sense. But I think maybe we should confirm if, was it or wasn't it in the pros plan?
Is it even on our radar screen? What I'm interested in is safe, non-motorized transport where there's density.
Mhm.
And there's density in Trailwinds, and they're walking there and they're biking there, and I see them on the roads.
Right.
And it's gonna be worse when there's a freeway, a paved portion of Park Road.
Right.
Where it's not a freeway, but they drive 60 miles an hour.
Because basically, you're gonna have dense development all the way around there with sidewalks all the way around there. Then you're gonna have a little over a half mile of a gravel road with no sidewalk, no safe way for people to walk to Zeeb Road with, you know, like you said, obviously, a lot of destinations between restaurants, Meyer, and other services, so why wouldn't you? It seems like my third thing was that we should look at the pros plan, see if it was or wasn't a mention. You can revisit the pros plans. If it wasn't mentioned, then is it worth considering some early preliminary study of that? Does it make
And
some
maybe
sense?
this isn't the body to talk about that. Maybe that's a BOT thing. I don't know. I just don't
I
want
mean, pathways
It-
is an item.
to.
and
At some point, the issue is gonna present itself when the sidewalk and the roads stop. And it's, okay, now what? And it's something that should be on our,
Right,
radar
just be
screen.
aware of, make an educated decision.
it's coming, y'all.
If it's not in the pros plan, then we need to decide, would we want to amend the pros plan or just say, okay, we don't want to deal with it. That's, make a decision, but at least be aware of it so we're not.
it's on behalf of the Trailwinds residents. Yeah, Rita, I'm sorry.
So from what my perspective, I think what the focus has been with all these preserves and natural areas is bringing these pathways through them to connect. So if they can get to one of the preserves, and I don't have a good map of this in my brain right now. I think maybe we should put this on for talking about, even if it's just a short discussion theoretically where we start bringing attention to those areas, exactly what you want, right? It needs to be pointed out, make some dots on the map, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think that from what I've taken from parks, is that we've tried to do these connections by going through our open spaces, our preserves,
Like
and drawing
park?
people away from the main roads and get them on these.
From people,
Pathways.
get our people to the parks. Or, is that right?
Yeah, that's
People
kind
are-
of my idea.
I agree with that. People also want to go to Panera and
But if they can
Fire.
get,
But
keep
people
them
who,
off the big main roads most of the time and so you're, and get.
but there's a nice park at the western intersection of Stabler and Park. There's nice open space that we now own. And there's open space a little bit, and there's a little 10-foot trail that we own or whatever. So at some point, we'll be able to take people who live on Zeeb Road and people who live in French Country and or Arbor Point, we'll get them to be able to walk to the west. So it'll serve density to commerce and density to parkland.
Yeah.
It seems like it has a lot in common with the Upland project, and except that we would be doing this as the development is coming in, rather
Right, but
than-
it also has the advantage of connecting to park and to that preserve, I forget.
I'd like to see this committee come up with ideas that then we can present to the board of trustee. I'd like to
I
get
don't
out.
wanna hijack our budget committee, but I'm just saying, is that something that we need to just have a line item for, even if it's $0 for this year, and you know, something for next year, and it's a study, or I just throw it out there, because that's gonna be a non-motorized pathway that there's gonna be a big demand for it once the Trailwinds developer fulfills their obligation to pave roadway and pathway for half of it.
And is that dated? In other words, that pavement is expected to happen when?
2023, which is over.
Yeah.
But it got
Okay.
waylaid, stymied,
Yep.
because the developer wanted to divert it to the left as it goes down, as Stabler Road goes south. So there's currently two culverts, two bridges. And it'd be sure nice to just build one bridge, so let's move it over to the left a little bit and have one bridge rather than two culverts. But that had the unintended consequence of cutting off people's private property or cutting off open space that they thought was gonna be behind their private property and the berms that they put up. And it's been kind of a big to-do.
So then to get back to the budget, then to put even a line item with $0,
Yeah,
whatever,
$0.
but I'm trying to follow what you're saying. So we say pathway, not
Or-
road,
or-
because we're not talking about roads, we're talking about,
Heavens, no, we're not
Yeah,
talking about
right.
roads. We're talking about a non-motorized
Yeah.
pathway
Gotcha.
for the eastern segment of
Okay.
Park Road.
so then we can proceed with that discussion and or line item on the budget, whether or not this culvert goes this way or that way, right?
Whether we won't have money until 2030.
But yes, but I'm trying to take your point and say, fine, we should find a way to thread crossing 94 on Zeeb Road, getting in that direction and even further down to connect to the people you're talking about, right?
I'm trying to.
That's what we're talking about.
I'm trying to connect people to
Yep.
that park, to that preserve
Yep.
and people to the Zeeb Road.
To come back up
Commerce,
toward, yes,
Zeeb Road path.
gotcha.
Eventually, to get to Hoover Vacuum or wherever it is,
Right, so
we all need to get.
that's all I was trying to boil it down to, so that we can have some way then of not only having an opportunity to have a discussion about it, but as you rightly said, how does that dovetail with the pros plan? And how do we make that part of that, if that's the best way to go about moving forward to get this done,
Why don't we, for the next time we meet, why don't we kind of dive into this idea, pull up the pros plan and decide what we're really looking at, and then I'll be able to estimate a budget number if we all agree and budget the budget.
And unless somebody knows, I really don't know the last word on that project, where it is. And I know they've had meetings and it might have to come back to the planning commission if it's a significant or a major
Impact to the open space.
major modification of what's called a PUD, plan unit development, but it's gonna be built someday there. It's kinda, some of it's out of our hands, some of it's up to Eagle. And Eagle, DNR, in my days, they say, oh no, it's going here, or something like this. So some of it, you know, and then there's road commission.
Well, I think what we should do is, make sure that we have a map that we can put up so that we can see what we're talking about. And because really connect it that way. So, yeah, I don't think we should spend an enormous amount of time on it, maybe just a
Nope,
limited
nope,
kind of
nope,
just an
nope,
idea.
Good idea, let's bring it back. to
Status
next meeting.
update, I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
With
And
pros,
speaking-
plan, background, and a map, and then figure out,
Well,
go, because
when we were in our previous committee and we had, I was asking, what kind of maps can we make? Did we not make those for the pros plan? Or did those not get into the pros plan? Or didn't we have one over here that we made that we could actually, that would be part of what you're talking about? And whatever extra dots we have to make, we could just use the one we already have, maybe.
that's why I think it might be in the pros plan, but
Yeah.
I guess we'll find
Yeah,
out.
okay,
Stay
Yeah.
tuned, come next meeting.
there you go. That'd be great. Love maps.
John, when you were talking about the east part of Park Road, are you talking about east of Z Road?
no, I'm
West.
talking about not to be a smart ass, the
West.
east part of West Park Road. The eastern part, the Park Road that connects Stabler.
Sure.
Past the big red barn and Zeb Road.
Got it.
And the western part of that portion of Park Road is gonna be paved at the expense of and as a public benefit provided by
Mhm.
the Trailwinds developer. The eastern portion is TBD. And I know there's the Scio board put aside some funds on it. And, you know, I'm just saying, planning for that is something that needs to be done. And maybe it's like, not our problem, Riser, that's a BOT thing, that could be. But it's just still something, it's still something that needs to be planned for from a non-motorized transport.
I kind of feel like this has been sort of thrown out there even a few years ago. But I think bringing it all back up, really everybody getting on the same page, really understanding where exactly we're talking about is just to at least get something on the wall.
Yeah.
And then we can see where it drives to. Can we do something next year even? Can we do anything, even if it is just some kind of study or whatever,
Mhm.
feasibility, how much it's gonna cost.
Great, so I'll definitely have that on our next agenda.
Okay.
Are we good to keep moving on budget? Okay. Line 139, contracted services, this is not property specific. I have here some numbers for Zeb Road pathway maintenance, and I am still deciding if this is the right place in the budget for Zeb Road pathway maintenance. But you can see numbers here that OHM helped me estimate on inspection of the Zeb Road pathway. It's about time to start looking at potholes and asphalt cracking and resurfacing phases 1 through 4. So I'm in conversation with utilities and with the Joyce to kind of create this management plan for Zeb. So yeah, that'll be in the works this coming fiscal year. Similarly, this is a placeholder. I don't have a number here on row 141 yet. I'm waiting to hear back from LJ Construction, who built the boardwalk on Zeb, the Zeb Road pathway, to figure out maintenance for those boardwalks, because planks are starting to kind of come up a bit, and it's time to refinish those and fix little planks that are coming up. Okay. Down to row 150, we have grounds maintenance. Not sure if that line item should exist, but essentially sometimes utilities will help out with parks, and I'm trying to figure out the right place in the budget for utilities to be able to bill their hours when they help out with parks. For example, this weekend, we're gonna have a big snowstorm, hopefully. I miss snow. But Kevin from utilities will be coming out and helping to keep the Zeb Road pathway clear. And I want to make sure that is coming out of parks and not coming out of utilities when they're helping parks like that. Row 154 and 155 are easement rows for the Z Road Phase 5. So we have a couple easement acquisitions coming up to finish Phase 5, and so those are placeholders.
Sorry, Anna, just real quick, it's a
Yeah.
very small detail,
Please.
but when you're talking about having maintenance come out and clear the pathway, who decides when it's actually necessary? Like, is it at a half an inch, or did we wait for an inch, or, and who's in charge of that?
Good question. This is a conversation Kevin and I were just having today. He let me know that if snow sits, it becomes a lot harder on the equipment. For example, if you were to wait until Monday to come to clear Z Road pathway, not only would it be a liability, but it would be really hard on the equipment to clear it. And so I'm kind of deferring to his judgment of when it will be hard on the equipment to let it sit. He'll just go out and deal with it before we get to that point.
But as it then a cost to our budget, we would write them a check saying, thanks for clearing the pathway, here's your check. Do they have just every time we do it, it's $1,000, or if it's 4 inches, it's $3,000?
Got it. So how it would work is Kevin would just bill his hours to this number that I create. When Brandon, his manager, fills out that information, it would come from Parks. And it takes about an hour at his overtime salary.
Okay.
If it's happening on the weekend. If it's happening during the week, it would just be at his salary.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Okay, here we are finally at the line item number that Kathleen brought up, which is row 162, and it's Scio Ridge Uplands Construction. 200,000 carried over, and I made a note here, this can go back down to zero, we're done with this project. Which I don't know if we ever really adequately celebrated as a group, but that was great that we did that, and it's done. Kind of nice to bring a number down to zero.
Patrick in here to take a bow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that brought us to the end of the pathways portion of the budget. We're now into the maintenance portion of the budget, which again, next year this will be gone. It will just be all one department. It'll be much easier to look at. There's not much to look at in this part of the budget, really. Like really nothing in expenditures. So any questions over?
I do see a red number. That'd be a question. Yeah,
Negative.
right.
Yeah. Because this is my understanding, and it's not really a complete explanation, but because a lot of the revenues in parks are grants, and a lot of them are reimbursement grants, so they don't actually show up in our revenues. They're like held in another account. And then when parks spends money, we can get reimbursed from that account. Generally, net revenues and expenditures of the parks budget are never quite accurate because they're not taking into account all of our revenue.
It's
So,
misleading, because I mean, if you go to percent used, I mean, we're like way under budget, so that's what's, I mean, to me, it's a little frustrating. It's like, no way we're over budget, because I mean, a lot of the project we had planned, our biggest project, Scio Ridge Uplands, was funded with ARPA dollars. So end of the day, we should be substantially under budget. And end of the day, it looks like we're over budget when we didn't do most of our projects. Those are like,
right.
and you look at percent used, I mean, I'm showing 16%.
And so to carry over monies that are left over into next year, right? We don't have like a sunset clause on it where we have to give it back or whatever. It's okay.
Yeah, our money, yeah, the funds do carry over. Additionally, in the revenues portion of this budget, the numbers that are being used to create these final summary numbers here, carryover isn't included in revenues.
Okay.
So that additional,
Is there a line item we can make for, call it a savings account then? So that we know what we have in addition to whatever what you're talking about the percent used, where did you see that? I don't, oh my goodness, there it is. Okay, I see.
So what you're asking is more the fund balance down at the bottom. That's where it should show up.
Yeah.
So we had we had money in the fund balance at the beginning of the year. And if you end up spending not all of what you had budgeted, the surplus would go into that fund balance. So our fund balance should have grown. At the end of the day, it will grow.
Okay,
Once 2023, 24 numbers are audited and finalized.
so then we have more than 789,000 in our carryover or savings account, fund balance, whatever it's called. As soon as the reimbursements are accounted for, Anna, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, okay, thanks.
And
Yeah.
accounts and projects that we didn't pay for, didn't do, get zeroed out.
Mhm.
Like we had, 200,000 budget for back here, we didn't use 200-some thousand budget for salvage, we didn't.
Okay.
Get ARPA money. So
I
once
find
all
it-
those,
I can share here an email from Plant Moran just in transparency, so everyone's on the same page. Considering fund balance, like carryover and deferred funds of reimbursement grants, we can think of about 2.5 million for budgeting purposes in parks. And Plant Moran said, yes,
For next year.
yes,
Okay.
even though that's not showing up in our revenues, we can have that in our minds, 2.5 million, with the understanding that we have a big Z Road pathway project coming up, 25, 26. So I'm also working with Plant Moran to create a budget plan to make sure we have those funds for ZEB for that construction year ready to go.
And I guess just another kind of nitpicky thing, but it adds up. You have an interest income in the near top line or in the beginning of the budget, somewhere up there? Or was it interest income or whatever it was? I can't remember the title now.
interest earnings.
Interest earnings. So obviously we have a significant amount of money. Is that just in the general fund, but it has our name on it? So therefore any revenue from interest and or whatever that goes to us is based on the amount of money that Scio Township earns on their savings, so to speak, and we get a share of it? Or do we direct how that money is to be saved and where it's saved? Because if we can take it, because if for whatever reason, let's say Scio Township's only getting 1% on their savings, and we can find something that gives us 4%, I mean, how easy is that to do, or is it impossible?
It's a good question. I don't know.
I mean, on $2.5 million, get a serious amount of.
Right. I mean, if you look at all the fund balances Sal has, I
Uh-huh.
mean, that's something Anna probably is not gonna be involved with determining where to best invest.
Right, that's why my question is, do we
Someone
set,
at the town.
can we segment our money in a specific way?
What's gonna be grouped together, like our 2 million plus the 2 million
Yeah.
over here plus the 1 million over
Yeah.
here, all that, and then someone's looking at, okay,
So that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
And so our name is on that 2.5 million in the Scio General Fund. And whatever money they're earning on that fund, we get a portion of it.
yeah,
Okay,
so we're getting 2%, 2% times 2.5 over years, blah, blah, blah.
so I want to manage that money here and get more for it. I mean, I don't know.
I
That's
think
a
the
lot of
answer
money.
to it, we are just a figment of the township board's imagination.
Yeah.
And they can say. That's how I view it.
I mean,
Yeah.
and that's why having a dedicated village for this stuff makes certain things gonna get done. Prior to that, you were at the mercy of the township board, because you have projects, but you're like, okay, can we have $10, 100,000, whatever to do a project? Now there's dedicated revenue sources, and that's where, we're looking at multiple year budgeting makes sense, especially on a big project like Z. It's gonna be a couple $1 million, so you need to budget that over a couple years to save up for it. So then when you want to go build it in 25, money has been set aside. So that's what ideally we're trying to do. And the whole interest thing, yeah. Whatever the big pot is, our slice of that pot is 10%, 20%, whatever that is, and then, yeah.
Okay. I just want to get as much as we can for our savings.
Good question.
As we continue to meet about the budget here at Township Hall, I'll probably be sending out a couple more drafts to everybody. And I don't know if we probably won't go over it again line by line. I don't think a ton will change. But yeah, I'll send out drafts. Any other questions before we move on from budget talk?
Just final point of order with respect to the pros plan on page 7, where they have the map 1, Scio Township Trail and Pathway Plan. There in orange is the Scio West Pathway. A lot of it is dotted line, meaning it's something that's anticipated. And it's dotted line along Park Road in orange from the blue Z Road pathway that goes north. And then it becomes a solid line by Trailwinds and a solid line going north on Stabler. And then it becomes dotted again as it makes its way through that property that we've acquired through LPC. So there is an actual plan for the eventual pathway called the Scio West Pathway that's along Park Road, Stabler Road in west and north or west.
Yeah, I thought there was something in.
Yeah.
The pros.
Page
I thought, I remember the discussion back here in your tab, yeah.
Yeah, tap, that's right. Okay.
Even if we.
So you don't have to wait till next meeting to find out.
No, and so even if it's Scio West Pathway Engineering, $0, or whatever, you just, well, you know.
But it would be good to bring those maps in
Mhm.
and let's just,
Cause there's just something else.
It is a conversation to have because there are a lot of proposed paths on that pros plan map.
Right.
And then the pros plan kind of lays out the different projects and then we get to determine what projects. we
Right,
want to
can't
work
they,
on.
what
can't
are
do
the
them all.
priorities?
Yeah.
Where do we start?
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Okay, if we're done with item I, we can move on to item J, Ann Arbor Schools Program Sloan Preserve.
so Anna and I have, well, I don't know if you guys know this, but Sloan has been used with the Ann Arbor Public Schools. They've been doing survival programs for a year.
Yep.
And, they have, you know, Dave Siegel, the guy in charge right now, he's gonna be retiring this year, but he had mentioned to me last year, we talked about the snags that, some trees that could come down anytime. And they were pretty good size and they were right in the area where they were working and since then, some of them have just come down because of nature, Mother Nature's helped us out.
Yep.
But Anna and I were talking about, and she talked to Joyce. They actually met about this. It's kind of all about setting precedent and moving figuring out how do we want to deal with this. It's just like the flyers are out here at this park, and so they do some maintenance stuff. They get to use it, but they kind of maintain it. But when it comes to these survive programs, if they're going to use the space, they've been using it for years. And maybe they can have a little skin in the game as far as the Ann Arbor Public Schools probably has some money that they can help if they really want some of those things removed, if they feel like that they need to have them taken out, maybe they can help with that. So right now, Anna and I did it again. Joyce, thank you. I want to call her Peggy tonight, I don't know why. But they're in talks about you know, liability and you know, just where do we draw the line? What all do we do? What do we, and so one thing that we talked about was inviting David Court to one of our meetings. We want to have a short discussion about Sloan. That these are all just things up in the air right now. I think that because they know exactly what their needs are and I know what their needs are with those programs, but like, I don't know if we want to cater to them and go in and make everything just right. And then if there's an issue, then are we liable? Whereas if they have a little more skin, if they bring out a volunteer group from the schools and they kind of work on the site, which happens.
Do they pay a fee for the winter survival programs to Scio Township?
I don't think so. They use properties all over, a lot of them are private properties. And it just depends on what schools they're at. So they want properties that are closest to some of the schools.
They do educate some Scio Township's kids, don't they?
They do, they certainly do. And there's a lot of fuel there that now that, one thing that Dave brought up a few years ago is maybe planting some more seeds for tender, and it's really important.
Yeah.
And there used to be a lot there out in the front, out close to the road. And I was out there just before they were supposed to go this last week and the goldenrod was pretty slim pickings. And that's kind of a problem. They really have to have enough tinder to make those fires.
Sure.
And they wanted to, there's a big, we used to call it the field, and it had a lot of goldenrod too. And it's just, there's not as much, and so they asked if they could plant more goldenrod. And I think working with the schools, they could even do it as, some of the older kids, they do different kinds of programs too, so. Or with their volunteers. Anyway, it's all something that we just need to like think about now that it's, we do have a director and we do have, just an opportunity, and Dave's retiring, an opportunity to regroup and decide how we want to move forward with these. And that they use Liberty as well. Again, how much do you want to cater to and go get things ready for them, or just let them pick their approach to the pond? So if they fall, if somebody gets hurt, hey, they chose it.
Yeah,
I didn't,
yeah.
so.
I think, yeah, currently there's no documentation, and there's no like written agreement. And we do have rules like no harvesting, but then they're harvesting. We don't have anything written up.
But
that
they're
says-
helping us out by harvesting, because it's really a lot of wood on the floor.
Yeah, we don't have anything written up that says it's okay that they're harvesting. The liability issue, I will have that conversation with Joyce and township attorneys. But I do think it'd be great to have them in, just kind of build that relationship like we did with the flyers. Yeah.
Because whatever they're planting, we're gonna wanna be in agreement. I know you said goldenrod, but what if they think, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have this, this and that also? Well, no, not really. So, yeah.
Well,
having
they're
some
probably not
guidelines.
gonna plant an invasive species.
I'm sure they
Yeah.
wouldn't, but just so that, Anna's right, we gotta have the guidelines, so.
Right.
So maybe we can invite them for our next meeting.
Well, yeah, Dave's been at the helm for a long time, and he's gonna be leaving. This is just a good opportunity to kind of
And maybe meet his,
regroup court.
the guy coming in after, or the person gonna fill in for him, if they know that person's name or who that
Yeah,
is.
they
Don't
don't
know.
yet. But Court is sort of his, wingman right now. He's kind of,
Okay,
You said he's the director of the program, just for
Dave Seco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the
he's-
current director of the, okay.
Yeah, he's the. his title is.
Ann Arbor,
Okay.
something.
But it's it's environmental, but there's always been one person in the hot seat, and he's the guy.
Okay, all right, I just want to, for secretarial purposes, I don't want to.
And if anybody
Yeah.
is interested in that
title.
position, you should consider doing it. They need people that have been in the classroom and have some background in environmental ed.
But I think it's a great opportunity, because I mean, my students went through it, like I said, a lot of kids from Scio, all the kids in Scio, like go to Ann Arbor schools, most of them all have been through it, but I think it's educational. But I think you try to get kids at a younger age, so then they do appreciate parks later on, and I think that's part of the reason we have this service, and I know Washington County, we do the same thing with them. Like, it's something that I would be opposed to trying to have them pay for anything. I mean, not that we're gonna spend a lot of money for their services, but I think it's a great program, getting the kids out to these parks.
Yeah.
And then kids came back, my kids are like, parks that never been to, it's like, oh, well, some of these kids probably have never been to any of these parks, and opportunities like, oh, wow, some of these parks are pretty close to where they live. They might not just have that opportunity, and so I think open
Sure.
exposure is great for us as a community.
And they spend the whole day out there.
Mhm.
And if you go out to the site, which I would recommend you do, if you go out to the site when they're actually working, it looks like,
yeah.
homeless camp that's been there for years.
Yeah.
I mean, stuff is everywhere.
Yeah.
And when they leave, you can't tell they were there. They do a little cleanup game at the end.
They
and
do,
it's-
yeah.
And it's awesome. You cannot tell they were there.
No,
Anyway.
great opportunity. All right, item K, public comment. No one's here, but is anyone have their hand up?
No hands yet. All right, Rob Pattinson. Thank you.
Here.
Anyone else want to share during public comment? All right, no more hands.
Anything else in the group? Not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I have one thing, and I might bring a resolution. I'm gonna be reaching out, and if you have anyone else, CC Anna, maybe you folks on it, I'm gonna be reaching out to either OHM or Rep Felicia Braybeck to try to, in the road commission, about, or maybe Watts or Semcog or other, to try to have a non-motorized pathway that connects Scio Church Road with Oak Valley there. It was precipitated by 2 nights ago, it was snowing. And I saw a woman and a guy pushing a stroller at night in the snow with a flashlight and like along the shoulder of the road. And it was like nuts.
Scio Church.
What's that?
Scio
Church, yeah. It's like, I was kind of dumbfounded. I guess you do what you gotta do to get by, but it just prompted the need. So it first starts with maybe engineering, or it first starts with, hey, road commission, where would you put a crossing? I don't care where the crossing goes. They're gonna wanna, where it's safe in the sight lines and the this and the that in the ditch, and there's all kinds of technical stuff that I don't appreciate. So I don't know if I bring back a resolution that we would be in support of it or something, or it's just something that I wanna kinda okay, that's a New Year's resolution, is to reach out to try to get that ball started, knowing that it takes years to.
Sorry, isn't that something we talked about already in the pros plan? Is it not in the pros plan?
Sure, it is. In the
It is in the pro.
Yeah, oh, okay.
It is in the pro
Okay,
plan,
all right.
but it's probably gonna be damned expensive.
Oh, okay,
Because you're
yeah.
crossing Scio Church
Uh-huh.
and it's a fast road
Mhm.
and I don't know, there's culverts, so you've got.
Right.
Right?
Is it on the north side, the south side? Where is it? And, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, when we did the project we just finished,
Mhm.
that was always considered phase one. And future phases, yeah, connecting it, because ideally, that area is the densest or second densest area of Scio Township. And people here again, some people want to go to Ann Arbor, which is just on the other side of the freeway.
They wanna walk
And-
in the ice.
yeah,
cream
and-
park,
totally.
the library, or
There's
Pioneer Ice
library,
Cream.
there's, all kinds of commerce, it's like figuring out a connection, we should figure out all those connections in those areas to the city, to Oak Valley Drive, to all those services
Yeah,
down
I
there.
don't know.
Yeah,
I don't even know who I reach out to. So is it OHM or is it to the road commission? Is it to Felicia? Felicia Braybeck she's the state rep for that. She's interested.
right,
In it, and there's Lodi right across the street, but they got another 3 people there in that mile stretch, so they don't have density there, but I'm sure they wouldn't be opposed to it.
Right.
It connects with Pittsfield and.
Wasn't there, sorry, but wasn't there also the possibility of a PUD at some point to do that? I know that's a
south
lot.
side,
Well, but some development going in across, where is it, not Wagner's, what's the nursery?
what nursery is that? But,
Anyway, it's Turner's, whatever, yeah.
no, it's not Turner, it's.
Oh.
Yeah, right?
Abbott?
Oh, sorry, okay.
That's lower down.
That's-
No, well, no, okay, I thought I was following, you're talking Scio Church heading toward the ice rink.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, but
Library.
across from, in that area is a nursery, and I thought that was being sold, okay.
But that's Lodi.
Oh,
Right.
I'm sorry, I see what you mean.
It's in Lodi
Okay.
Township. not
I got
Sargent.
So that's gonna
Right.
take a lot of coordination and then working, with.
but we're starting those discussions.
Yeah.
Scio Church Road is a county road, I presume,
Yeah, and it's a fast one.
right?
Yeah.
Kind of, so same thing.
Yep.
Does this start here, does it start at the BOT? I don't know, that's a good question.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so.
Let's
I mean,
throw a
that's-
bike lane in on Scio if we're gonna do that too.
So I do have a question about bike lanes. Can bike lanes be created by lane narrowing? Or I know that there are sometimes municipalities narrow lanes, and I don't know, the road commission might say, over our dead body, you do that. But and maybe they lower the lanes that they own and have control over. But can you can you narrow a lane, which is a natural speed controlling device, so that you can add bike lanes in that additional space?
One of
Or-
one of the terms for that is a road diet. They take out, like taking out a middle lane.
Yeah, but not, I'm not, but
You're just asking, but, because
If it's
generally,
a lane
the
road, you want a
standard
narrow
is
lane.
12-foot lane, that's always been sort of the standard, and when I was there, we did restripe most lanes to 11-foot lanes. The city's gone down to some, because the stand ASHTO, which is American Stand,
I have that
you
at
can
work.
go from basically a 10 to a 12-foot lane, but most organizations always went to a 12-foot lane. Road commissions has gone down to more 11-foot
Except the
lane.
Bikers Association of Michigan or whatever, the bicyclists would rather have a 10-foot lane
Right.
and a dedicated bike.
Right, so they could go down to 10-foot lanes, that's gonna be, you're gonna have to convince them
The
why.
commission,
Road commission,
or
right,
the PEs on the engineers or the commission?
well, both, I mean, yeah, I mean, the PE is the manager and then, but the commission.
Yeah, faster is better.
Right, well, yeah,
You got-
that's what some people think, yeah, faster is better, but obviously, yeah, but. So the city of Ann Arbor has obviously done a fair amount of roads now for 10-foot lanes. There's always concern, like, it's gonna increase crashes and different things. I mean, get the data and show, oh, it really hasn't increased crashes, that has reduced speeds, and actually, some places you could probably argue it's made the road safer. That's where you wanna get that information, like Packard Road's a prime example. They've made 10-foot lanes on sections of Packard Road, the city of Ann Arbor. And so, yeah, I mean, in urban areas, 10-foot lanes work. I mean, it's.
But like on Scio Church Road though, 50-mile-an-hour road, is that of course, there really isn't any data for that kind of road, is there, at a 10-foot lane? Nobody's done that.
Probably not,
Bet there.
Yeah.
right.
In
The other hand is,
Italy,
all you
they
do
do it
is
in Italy all the
make a
time.
wider shoulder, so it's not like you're taking pavement away.
Yeah,
You're just putting a
right.
white line out.
Moving
further.
it in the-
Right, exactly.
yeah.
Rather than having, a 2-foot paved shoulder, you end up with a 3-foot paved shoulder, whatever the numbers
They're
are.
a little closer to the sun.
Right. And it's the same cost, it's just when you when you repave a road or you whatever,
No, I
you
get
just
it.
restripe it at a different location, then, yeah, but you just need to convince people at the road commission, the commissioners and the PEs.
But it's a worthwhile project.
The
I'm with you.
consideration on other,
And I also appreciate that traffic speeds are often based on access points, which means 55 mph.
right. But there's some movement in Lansing to modify that speed limit law. So,
But I think this is all worth having, as we go through this year. To shine some light on this and start exploring it.
Kind of Liberty, it's the same way. The Scio Farms, Scio View goes in.
Awful for pedestrians.
Yeah, so I mean, Liberty is just west of, it's gonna exist there where we have density coming in. And people biking
Right.
in the winter on that road without a bike lane.
yeah, I just had a conversation for the first year with the League of Michigan Cyclists Bikes, League of, and, you're supposed to spend 1% of your revenue, yeah. What you're supposed to spend 1% road commissions, cities, MDOT on non-motorized. And it's not always crystal clear, are they doing that or not? And in this federal regulations, if more than 15% of your crashes and injuries and fatalities are pedestrian and cyclists, then you should be doing more. And supposedly our number is more like 18%. And we're trying to encourage people to do more biking and cycling, and so you should try to make a road safer for them, right? That just seems logical. But trying to convince, people in Lansing and people, people that have been using the roads, it's the automobiles and truck people, that more than 1% should be going towards those things and properly, because sometimes they'll just resurface a road and say, oh, it has wide shoulders. Because MDOT doesn't even account for that 1%, because they say, all of our state highways have wide shoulders, so that's our 1%. Don't even document it's, yeah.
Trunk lines even, like.
Oh, yeah, because they'll say M52, that's a bike lane. It's a paved shoulder, it's not really a bike lane, but they call it a bike lane. And then on top of that, when I was working with MDOT in the city, Ypsilanti Township, city of Ypsilanti, Huron Street over in, where that is, Huron Street over I-94. Yeah, when they built it, they had no pedestrian access across that like most of them. But then when MDOT got a grant to improve it, we got a federal aid grant, they made the locals pay the match on that. They wouldn't even use their 1% money. They made the locals pay that, even though who created that situation? MDOT, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones that put the narrow bridge in, 40, 50 years ago. So to solve the problem, it made the locals sort of pay to solve it. So like, really, but that's what people in Lansing have allowed, you know, I mean, that's the priorities. Vehicles, if you're in a car or a truck, you're important. If you're not, all right, too bad. So, sorry.
Move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
5:41.
No problem.